To my surprise,
He did the mash.
he did the monster mash.
The monster mash.
It was a graveyard smash.
He did the mash.
It caught on in a flash.
He did the mash.
He did the monster mash. From my laboratory in the castle east to the master bedroom where the vampires feast. The ghouls all came from their humble abodes to get a jolt from my electrode.
They did the mash.
They did the monster
The
mash.
monster mash.
It was a graveyard
They
smash.
did the mash.
It caught on in a flash.
They did the mash.
They did the monster mash. The zombies were having fun. The party had just begun. The guests included Wolfman, Dracula, and his son. The scene was rocking, all were digging the sounds. Igor on chains, backed by his baying hounds. The coffin bangers were about to arrive with their vocal group, the Crypt Kicker Five.
Played the mash.
They played the monster mash.
The monster mash.
It was a graveyard
They
smash.
played the mash.
It caught on in a flash.
They played the mash.
They played the monster mash. Out from his coffin, Rex's voice did ring. Seemed he was troubled by just one thing. Opened the lid and shook his fist and said, "Whatever happened to my Transylvania twist?"
It's now the mash.
It's now the monster mash.
The monster mash.
And it's a graveyard smash.
It's now the mash.
It's caught on in a flash.
It's now the mash.
It's now the monster mash. Now everything's cool. Drax a part of the band, and my monster mash is the hit of the land. For you, the living, this mash was meant to. When you get to my door, tell them Boris sent you.
Then you can mash.
Then you can monster mash
The monster mash.
and do my graveyard
Then you
smash.
can mash.
You'll catch on in a flash.
Then you can mash.
Then you can monster mash. Mash. Easy, Igor. You impetuous young boy. Mash good.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our introduction to Data Vista. This is our new data visualization platform for the California community colleges. We're super excited that so many of you are here with us. One of the things, the most common question that we get asked on all these webinars is, can I get a copy of the slides? And you have an answer right in front of you right now. You can either use the QR code or the link that was placed in chat, or the link that is on the slide to go ahead and get those slides right away. If one of the things to note, actually, let me just go on to the next slide. Just a couple of quick reminders for all of you. The chat is disabled, as is common with our California Community Colleges webinars. We will be using the chat to post links and other information for all of you. If you have questions, please use the Q&A feature to ask questions. As is appropriate, some of them might be answered live, or we will answer in the Q&A at the end of the webinar, or potentially in the chat directly. The link to the slide deck has already been placed in the chat, and closed captioning is available. Just click the CC button that should be near the bottom of your screen, kind of the bottom right-hand side. If we could go to the next slide. So these are the presenters today. My name is John Hetz. I'm the Executive Vice Chancellor for the Office of Innovation, Data, Evidence Analytics. Here at the Chancellor's Office, there's a large team of folks, both at the Chancellor's Office and at WestEd, that have been working diligently over the last year and a half to bring this project to fruition. And so I just want to give them each an opportunity to quickly come on camera and introduce themselves, starting with Dr. Eric Cooper.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Eric Cooper, Vice Chancellor for Workforce and Research. Happy to see so many of you here today.
I'll go next, I guess. Or Chris, do you want to go next since you're next on the little tabs?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Ozuna, and I'm a research data specialist with the Chancellor's Office. And I've been working in between the Chancellor's Office research team and the WestEd team on this project.
And I'm Karen Beltramo. I'm a senior project manager at WestEd, working closely with the Chancellor's Office on this project. And I'll pass over to Adriel.
Hello, everyone. I'm Adriel Garcia, a program associate here with WestEd, and we're very excited to kick this off and show you all Data Vista today.
Right, I think the next slide is me. So we're going to have a little bit of an introduction and some background of how we got here, an overview of the data that is in the new platform. We're going to take you to the website a couple of different times and do some demos of the data views, and then we'll take some time to do questions and answers at the end. Next slide. So what is Data Vista? Many of you are going to remember that we had a previous platform, and that platform is still there. That is the Launchboard that we used for a lot of our data visualization. We decided to think about how we can most effectively rebuild that platform in a way that promotes greater understanding of student achievement, student outcomes, better supports evidence-based decision-making, and that actually does a lot of the things that many of you have been asking of all of us in order to improve your experience and the utility of the available data. And so I'm super excited by the work that's been done. One of the things I will note, I don't tend to quote the Greeks a lot because they're old. Partly they get quoted a lot because they got there first, and partly they get quoted a lot because there was a fair number of people in the kind of Renaissance era that became very, very enthused about keeping the Greeks at the front and center of our culture. But one of the things I do think that's relevant is there's this great quote by Socrates about what the secret of change is. And the secret of change, according to Socrates, was focusing your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. And so what's been really exciting about this project is watching this team come together to understand what we had before, but to build it fresh and new on a new modern data architecture with new modern data visualization tools that will make many of the things that you had before easier to use and much more functional. So I'm super excited to hand it over to Dr. Eric Cooper to share kind of a little bit of a deeper introduction to the platform.
And what you'll notice today is that we're going to bounce back and forth a little bit between our PowerPoint slides and Data Vista itself. And so for the first time, if you haven't already gone there, let's go ahead and take you to Data Vista right now for a live view. Semi-live view. Here we go. Thank you. So we want to highlight a few features before you begin. So first, you can see this has the live slides, live information right going on behind you. First thing off, if you're not somebody who wants to watch those videos, you can pause those. Let's wait for the bee to fly. Oh, never mind. We'll wait for our friendly bee to fly in and then pause it with the bee live. So if you don't want to watch that video going on behind you, you can, of course, pause that and save some bandwidth. Up at the top, you've got some navigation. We do want to highlight data views, which we'll talk about a little bit more in just one moment. Resources, which if you are accessing the slides, you can actually get there already from the resources page. We'll explore that a little bit later. News and events, if there are Data Vista related events that are coming up, you can find out more information there. About is kind of what it says it is. It tells you a little bit about Data Vista, its purpose, and then contact, that'll get you connected. And then last, certainly not least, if you are somebody who really wants to watch, really wants to learn how to use Data Vista outside of a webinar, you can go to that Take a Tour button and they'll bring up a nice video. You can listen to the sultry sounds of our narrators as they take you through an excellent journey into Data Vista and really show you in depth how to explore. We, of course, are going to do that a little bit today during this webinar, and let's go ahead and show you a little bit how to do that starting down below. You've got three primary options to get into Data Vista. If you are somebody who wants that big picture, we can go to Reports and Insights, which we're going to spend a little bit of time doing today. Let's go ahead and click that one layer in if you would. Let's go to that first layer of Reports and Insights. So if you're looking for things on adult education, guided pathways, student equity and achievement data, strong workforce, or of course, Vision 2030, you can find that summary data right here. Not going to spoil the surprise for you. We're going to come back to that in just a minute. Let's go back out a layer if we can. If you're somebody who is used to looking at the student success metrics and you really want to see that student journey from application all the way to workforce, you can go to our metric themes. Let's go ahead and go that one click in if we could. You've got a couple of different options. Just like before, we've got a cohort view. So we're going to be following students who begin at a certain time at the California Community Colleges and following them forward. We also have our snapshot view, which is just point in time. What is happening in an individual year? We can go into either of those options and start looking at what's happening to students through that journey. Let's go ahead and go back one layer if we could. Last, certainly not least, if you are somebody who wants to get super nerdy with the data, this is your opportunity in the single metric view to go in and take a look in a great deal of detail. And let's go ahead and go that look. We might even be able to answer a question. We'll go ahead and go to the non-special admit snapshot as well. That one more layer. Again, we're going to go into a little bit more of a demo in just a minute. And so what you can see on that left in that blue box are all the different ways that you can start to disaggregate the data. So right now it's starting with our first level of data, basically how many students do we have? And we've gotten the opportunity to look at our metrics, so different metric options, drill downs. We've got all of the same things that you are used to using in Launchboard, so age, race and ethnicity, disability status, veteran status, first generation, all those good things are there for you. You also have the option to look at it in different ways. I'm not going to steal the thunder for some of our later presenters, but just want to show you single metric view. If you want to get deep into the data, this is where you can see multiple years and lots of information. Let's go ahead and go back. And I believe that completes the brief tour of Data Vista. So let's go ahead and talk about our philosophy. For those of you who are big users of Launchboard, whether it was for adult ed or strong workforce or community college pipeline data, this is going to feel pretty different to you. This is a pretty big redesign from the point of the user. Our team and our partners at WestEd went through a pretty big user-centered design process, trying to talk to really the power users, the regular users of this data, folks at the Centers of Excellence, institutional researchers across the state, folks at the Chancellor's Office, and a variety of other folks to really see like, where are those things that people need, and how can we make sure that this is accessible to as many different users as possible. They did a big assessment of needs and goals, so looking at the different pinch points, looking at the things that folks might want in a tool, conducted a lot of user focus groups, and then developed a variety of prototypes to really get into how this information was going to be displayed. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, please. However, this isn't just a pretty new tool. This also has a very large investment in data infrastructure. One of the big challenges with any kind of large data set is getting information into and out of it and making things process as quickly as possible. So we have moved to a cloud-based system using very modern tools. We feel this is a really up-to-date tool and are excited to be using it at the Chancellor's Office. Big things that we're looking for. One, more scalability. So we're going to be able to handle larger data sets, which is good. If you were somebody who was familiar with the community college pipeline data on the Launchboard, that was something like 1 billion rows of data. It's a lot. It's a case of sometimes it was faster just to like pick up a hard drive and drive it to a college as opposed to like transferring it via the internet. No joke. We're hoping that this also helps us enhance reliability. One of the nice things about cloud storage and cloud tools, they've got lots of redundancy. So we're hoping for less downtime. We're also hoping, and we expect that this will allow us to have swifter updates as data becomes available. I will say right now, you're going to ask, hey, Eric, when's this data going to come out? It still relies on MIS. It still relies on EDD. It still relies on transfer information from CSU, UC, National Student Clearinghouse. So there's a limit in how quickly we can refresh the data because of our built-in cycles of data collection from the colleges. So even though we're going to be able to process the data swifter and we'll make it available as soon as it is processed, we still have those lags that are built into our system. And then finally, we've got simplified access to results in Snowflake. It's a data management tool for the Chancellor's Office and some of our partners. So we're hoping to make this data a little bit easier to use for external researchers, for internal researchers such as myself, and really have a very modern data infrastructure that's going to support good visualization in a timely fashion. Next slide, please. One of the challenges in statewide data that may not be totally apparent if you haven't worked at the Chancellor's Office or a big research organization is, hey, our students move around a lot. Internal Chancellor's Office research says about 40% of our students attend more than one college, about 20% attend more than one district. And so we get a lot of different information with student identifiers. So one of the things that we are working on through this system is a golden record to better identify those students who maybe don't have a social security number or who attend multiple colleges or change their name. So we're really trying to make sure that we've got a good tool that is helping us identify where students are the same student attending multiple colleges. We're also using some different methods of identification to help support CTE outcome CTE outcome survey, and also help support our adult education program and providers. So trying to make sure that we've got student ID from our K-12 and adult school partners built in so that we get really good information across all of our systems. This is getting a little bit more nerdy than probably some of you are going to care about, but we have to do a lot of transformation as this data as it comes in, right? Because if we're talking about completing math and English, we have to identify those math and English courses. We have to identify a student. We have to see if they took that math or English course at multiple colleges. So that exchange, extract, load, and transform of the data set is going to be faster. Literally, under our older system, sometimes that process would take weeks. We are now getting that down to hours. So we're really excited about that part of it. So the overall impact, decreased complexity of the data sets that folks are going to have to access. We're going to have increased accuracy of reporting, but it does lead to potential shifts in outcomes. So, you're going to look at that. We've got some documentation that explores where those are. Some other high-level takeaways on the next slide. Data Vista is a big step forward for the Chancellor's Office, for our adult ed partners, for us to have a modern, robust, cloud-based platform for data and metrics. So big things, again, takeaways, same data sources, but we've got improved loading and transforming processes. We've got new visualizations. We're super excited to show those off to you a little bit more in just a couple of minutes, and more access points to the data for different audiences. So we're going to explore and talk about those a little bit more later on as well. But we are super excited to share everything with you today. And with that, let me turn this over to Chris Ozuna.
Hi, everyone. I will be talking you through a little bit about the data itself and what's included in Data Vista. So if you can go to the next slide. This table shows the availability of data that is in Data Vista right now and looking forward over the next year or so. So if you look at the left handmost column called Launchboard Dashboards, if you think about what was in the Launchboard, what's still currently there, the second column over from the left shows what's being included in the Data Vista 2024 release. That's the release that's currently live, that went public a couple days ago. Not all of these tools are going to be referred to with the exact same names as they are in Launchboard, but the actual metrics and data that make those Launchboard products up are included in Data Vista 2024. So that would be everything from the student success metrics, the student success metrics cohort view, the strong workforce program dashboard. For the adult education program and pipeline, currently it includes the scorecard metrics and drill downs. It includes everything, all the student success metrics from the community college pipeline program. The K-12 Strong Workforce Program is not included in this initial release. We're still in discussions with what that will look like moving forward. One thing to note, the 2024 release that's currently available right now, what we're calling Data Vista 1.0, does include updated data for the 22-23 academic year. And those data are not going to be added into Launchboard. So now, if you visit the former Launchboard pages, you will see a message at the top of the page letting you know that current updates moving forward will only be available on Data Vista. So if you have a habit of using Launchboard for certain metrics, that's just an important thing to note, that moving forward, you won't be seeing any new data on Launchboard. It will all be on Data Vista as this table lays out. We will have another series of updates to Data Vista this calendar year, specifically targeting to add all the remaining metrics and drill down to the adult education pipeline. And then looking forward into 2025, all metrics will be updated with the 23-24 academic year data. We'll also be adding in a new special admit cohort view to help people keep track of special admits, specifically dual enrollment. Is of great interest to a lot of folks. So that will be coming in 2025. And then all the remaining metrics and drill downs for community college pipeline will be coming in 2025 as well. If you could go to the next slide. Just to describe the product roadmap moving forward. So the plan for Data Vista is to include additional data and features on a regular basis to help improve the platform. We do hope that you'll start to think of it more as a living tool, something that is worth visiting repeatedly because it will add new information and new features over time. Major releases will coincide with the annual data release. So this first version that just came out on Tuesday, we're calling Data Vista 1.0, as I mentioned. As we add the additional adult education program metrics that I described before, that will be 1.1 coming later this year. And then next year, when the 23-24 data are added, that will be the start of Data Vista 2.0 and kind of moving forward here. We do have kind of a short list of features that we are working on adding over the subsequent releases. And we also do hope to get feedback from the field moving forward here so we can make sure that this tool is useful for people on the ground. In our partnership with WestEd, we're also working on data governance plans and strategies at the Chancellor's office. As Eric mentioned earlier, Data Vista is a significant evolution in the way that we are processing and holding and presenting data. So we're reviewing the way that this affects all of our other projects and initiatives as well. On the next slide, I'd just like to note, specifically for folks that do work at IR offices at colleges and districts, student level data and student equity program data for the 2023 report year, including the disproportionate impact calculations, will be coming via data on demand the week of November 11th. So that's something that if you are at a district or a college IR office, will be relevant to you. And we are also working on supporting documentation to help you with the interpretation and use of those data. On the next slide, I will talk through some of the data sources. So especially in this first launch of Data Vista, this Data Vista 1.0, we really just want to drive home that it really is the same underlying data sources that are feeding this tool. So we are modernizing and improving the way that we process and hold this data, but ultimately it's coming from the same sources. So the COMIS annual and term files are a large source of data for many of the metrics that we use, and those are coming from colleges and districts themselves and being fed up into the Chancellor's office systems. We have the existing partnerships with the CSU and UC systems and the National Student Clearinghouse, with the California EDD, the Department of Apprenticeship Standards, CASA's provided TOPS Pro Enterprise file, the CCC Apply system, the CTE Outcome Survey, and the Insight Center for Community Economic Development. So everything that's feeding into Data Vista is coming from the same sources and the same partners. So we just want to reassure you that the data itself is not changing in the way that it's arriving to us. That being said, on the next slide, especially as you become more familiar with Data Vista itself, there may be instances where you do notice some differences between what is on Data Vista for a specific metric or a specific report or visualization and what you have seen on Launchboard in the past, or that's still available there now. The data sources, as I just mentioned, have not changed. The metric definitions themselves have also not changed at this time. So the values and denominators should be the same or very, very similar. If you do see differences, it's likely due to one of these three main buckets of reasons. So the first could be resubmitted data. Colleges and districts do have opportunities to resubmit their MIS data files after the cut was taken for what's on Launchboard now. So if colleges or districts do resubmit different numbers, that will change things in what you may see on Data Vista now. The second large category of reasons for differences would be updated processing. We are working always to improve our own internal processes. So at times we may improve the way that we match students, for example, to an external data source. So you might see an update that's reflecting that improved match rate and could change the values one way or another. And then the last major category would be due to updated coding. As Data Vista was being built, our team is working through kind of revisiting all of the coding for existing metrics, existing reports, all that sort of thing. As we find opportunities to improve the code, or as we find mistakes to be fixed, that might be responsible for changes that you see in values as well. All of the changes that we have uncovered in the process of creating Data Vista, we are documenting in a changes document that is available on the website. If or as new issues do arise or we find new differences, we'll continue to document those so that we can leave that open to the public so that you have a record as to why you're seeing differences between Data Vista and Launchboard. On the next slide, I'll show you an infographic that can be helpful in starting to make that transition from Launchboard to Data Vista. So this infographic is available on the website now. It's on the homepage. You can also find it in the resources library. We know that many of you are reliant on Launchboard in your own work. So to help you kind of make the transition from Launchboard into Data Vista, we've created this infographic. Along the right side in the Chancellor's Office Gold there, you'll see it's labeled coming from Launchboard. You can find one of the traditional dashboards that you are used to using, and you can follow where you would be able to find that same information on Data Vista. You'll see this in the tour here in a few minutes, and Eric alluded to it at the beginning. There's three main ways to enter into the data itself on Data Vista, and those are on the left side of that infographic. The reports and insights, the metric themes, and the single metric view. The underlying metrics and data are always the same. It's essentially the way that they're being grouped, the theme that they're trying to present, or the reason that you may be looking at them. We are trying to shift the way that Data Vista is structured so that it keeps and programs and student outcomes and initiatives at the center. So for that reason, there is some reorganization of the way the metrics were presented on Launchboard. On the next slide, this is a kind of a more focused infographic specifically about student success metrics. This will probably be one of the largest differences that you'll see. There's not a standalone student success metrics dashboard in Data Vista in the same way that there was in Launchboard. However, the student success metrics are underpinning most of what you see on Data Vista. So this infographic helps you find where you might, helps you find specific student success metrics that you may be looking for and where you can find them in Data Vista. As Eric also mentioned earlier, the metric themes view is probably the most analogous to what was the student success metrics dashboard, where you can look at students by segments of their journey over time. At this point, I'll hand it over to Karen, and she'll actually walk you through a demo of some of the different reports that are on Data Vista.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Happy Halloween, everybody. It doesn't really feel like Halloween, but I thought perhaps we'd be dressed up. Adriel had some costumes ready to go. Yeah, so I'll be doing this demo with my colleague, Adriel Garcia. I've been working on Launchboard for quite a while. And so it's pretty exciting to be here today with you all to show you the new platform. And so I think, Adriel, I mean, Eric did a great job of, I think, looking at some of the homepage, but why don't you explain a little bit more about the homepage, scrolling down maybe a little bit further and a little bit more about the ribbon?
Yeah, no, happy to do so. And thank you, Karen. As Eric mentioned earlier, we do have this ribbon, so I do just want to highlight it once more. But as we stay on our homepage, I will go into a couple of the portions that we have highlighted that maybe we won't dive into a lot today, but I want to make sure that as you all are exploring, you have a little bit of context to what you're seeing, right? So underneath the ribbon, in which Eric just mentioned earlier, we do have our quick links. So this would be direct access. And again, I'm not going to go into one of these reports, but do note that the quick links are going to house the reports and insights that you'll see in that tile in just a bit. So if you want to go directly into that scorecard and not hit the landing page, this would be a great way to go ahead and access one of those reports. We see the tiles that we will go ahead and go into in deeper just a bit. But underneath the tiles, what you all have maybe not yet got a chance to see is our data explorer. So this is a great way to explore data by maybe a set of metrics or a group of students, and kind of operates as a Mad Lib. So do note that for some of these selections, there might be some fixed groups of students that you can only look at, but for other options, you'll get a direct outcome for a student group. You can kind of play around with that and go directly to, like we said, a group of metrics for those highlighted. We have our updates, which will sort of be our spotlight area. We heard a lot from our focus groups of this idea of creating a community. So whether that's in the resource library or in our news and events page, we really want to make sure that you all stay informed, that you all understand maybe some announcements, some featured resources. Chris just highlighted the resource that is mentioned above as a featured one, as well as with future webinars or future ongoings, you'll have a great opportunity to go ahead and access and register for our upcoming events. Lastly, you can go ahead and stay in the know with all things Data Vista by subscribing to the mailing list that's provided here. So this was just a quick overview of our homepage. There's going to be some dynamic resources that come here from time to time or offering. So just please make sure as you land here, just take a quick look at what we're offering. I'm going to now segue into our first demo. So we did a little bit of an overview of the reports and insights tile. Let's go ahead and click once more in here. And Karen, let's get into our first report.
Yeah, just I'll pause to say we appreciate all the questions in the Q&A. We'll pause once in a while to see if there's anything in there about the demo. Meanwhile, everyone's madly answering those questions. And of course, there'll be time at the end as well to ask questions. Yeah, so for the first release, as you saw that Eric showed, we have 5 reports available. I noticed there was a question in the chat about the Student Equity Achievement Program. That report will give you the 5 metrics that are in the SEP, but it will be all FERPA suppressed, right? And then all the calculations for impact and all that, and not seeing it, the data FERPA suppressed is delivered through data on demand like it always has been to the district IR offices. So I'm just paused to say that about that report. Today, what we're going to focus in on most is the Vision 2030 report. If you'll notice this toolkit that's over on the right, this is where we're providing information, resources, guidance, terminology to help you either make a selection on the data view here or to help you interpret data that's displayed. You're going to see that toolkit update, and we'll show you that a little bit as we go. And so, Adriel, do you want to click into Vision 2030? Great. This is our most complex report of the 5. Adriel's going to show you another report that's a little bit more straightforward. There's a landing page for Vision 2030. If you notice the toolkit on the right, someone was asking about a metric dictionary. Right there, you can see there's 2 dictionaries here because there's 2 groups of students actually in this report. For overall progress, it's all students or all non-special admit, not duly enrolled in K-12. And then for the cohort, for the equity progress, it's cohort students we're looking at, our first-time credit students, tracking them over time. So in the toolkit, you'll see it's going to take you directly to that full metric definition dictionary. And then you'll see there's links to the Chancellor's Office Vision 2030 website. And we're hoping that just by providing you right there with your selections, it kind of helps you not have to go navigate to another site. But right here is like Adriel was saying, it's helping you kind of as a way to get sort of a sense of outside of just this data, where else to go to get information. So as you can see, there's those 3 main goals in Vision 2030: equity and success, equity and access, equity and support. We're just reminding you what those goals are. And let's drill down then first, Adriel, into overall progress, noting that you can print the full report here. Yeah, you want to click on that first. We'll just look at that really quickly. So you can select a report year. We'll talk about that in just a second. You can select a locale, a college, a district, a macro, a micro region, and then you can print a full report for the year you've selected. And it's quite a few pages. So just make sure it's what you want. But let's first start with overall progress. Yeah, so when we land here, you can see how much this looks more like a report just at first glance. We've got the status definitions here with some sort of ways we're saying that a college, right now we're looking at statewide, is exceeding, on track, progressing, or developing by each metric. Notice on the right then, toolkit's updated a bit for the report. Once again, it's probably the same as that landing page, but to give you context, and then the terminology is going to give you those student definitions of the students that are included. And then eventually over time, we'll add more to that conversation starter in the toolkit. So it's going to default always to the most recent year available. And this report year is really, you need to understand the context of the metric. It's the latest year available for each metric. And so let's just start with that top metric, earned an award, or the vision goal completion definition. Adriel, if you can hover over that goal. So you can see that in the Vision 2030, the goal is to increase 30% from baseline. And if you scroll down a little bit more to that transfer metric, Adriel, down a little bit further, there we go. And hover over, you can see that metric has a 20% increase from baseline. So let's go think about what is baseline. And so if you go back up to the top, if you go back a year and click that report, you can see right there, it says 2022 is our baseline year. So that is the year we're starting with. Determine what is the goal to increase from that year to 2030. So based on the number of students statewide who attained that first outcome 1, about 149,000 students, by 2030, we need about 194,000 students to make that. It's just 30% increase over 149. So as you can see, that status went away, the legend, because this is the baseline year. And so let's just make a note that goal about 194,000 for that first metric. And Adriel, let's go back to our first real report year of 2023 when we're measuring progress here. And as you can see, that goal has stayed the same, right? It's based on 2022. However, Adriel's hovering over 22-23 data, which is now 143,000, almost 144,000 students now that are completing. And the hover is telling you that flagged as we're in progress, which you can see how that's defined between 5 and 24.99% away from the expected progress in the selected year. And we're telling you how many additional students each year need to meet this metric outcome to attain that goal, that 30% increase by 2030. And as we add more data, we'll be adding more years into the report year. And I just want to add one last thing to make sure you notice that's 22-23 data for this metric. But Adriel, can you hover over 2D, the transfer to a 4-year institution? Just note that this data is 21-22 data. This is the most recent data available because we have to make sure our students have exited community colleges before we count them for transfer. So this metric's delayed by a year, right? But it's the most recent year for report year 22-23. So please just make a note of that. If you scroll up just a little bit more, I'm going to talk a little about that left-hand navigation. So I think Eric talked about this a little bit when he showcased the first view into the site, but you're going to get really used to the left hand is where you're selecting locales. And then if you could just show that upper right-hand menu, if you scroll up a little bit, Adriel, that right-hand menu is going to be a little bit new to you. It's a way you can kind of navigate between options that are available. So in the locale selection, if you click that drill down, you'll see expands. And then, we can see what our certain types are, which are the same as Launchboard, statewide, macro, micro, district, college. If you don't quite know what you're looking for, you can start typing in the locale search. to find a college or a district or a region. It'll give you your availability. That's actually a district. You can see when Adriel hovered over, it says the district is San Jose Evergreen, but there's also a college that's Evergreen Valley. We're just going to stay at statewide for right now. And then just quickly, one thing to note is that also you'll see the hide success, hide access, hide support metrics. That's a lot of metrics if you scroll down. If you want to just like limit to just a subset of them, you can easily hide one of those sections or two of those sections and just really focus in on access or really focus in on support, which is Adriel doing right now, and just look at those four metrics we have right now for support. So that's just another way we heard loud and clear from our user focus groups that people really want to have a bit more control of how the data is displayed. And so I feel like this is one way we're giving you the ability to do that. Can I pause just a little bit to see if there's anything from Ravinder from Q&A? No, we'll keep going then with Vision 2030 because I want to show you the trend. So Adriel, open that menu there and just make a quick note. Always, you see that PDF button almost always there in the upper right where you could PDF the metrics here. It would be the full report, but just this overall progress view. But yeah, let's go into trend. So this is sort of a unique trend view. We got our goal here, our goal that's going to stay static, our 193,800 students plus that need to complete by 2030 for this metric to meet that Vision 2030 30% increase. We have our baseline year of 21-22 for this metric, right? As we saw for transfer, that baseline year would be 2021 because it's lagged. And then we have our new year of data, 22-23. Right, you can see there was a little decrease there from baseline year, which would mean then you need the more additional students, right, to meet that Vision 2030 goal that we saw in that hover over information. So as we get more years of data, you'll see the data added, the bars added, 23-24 would be added, and we start building out to see how we're progressing to meeting the goal set by Vision 2030. And as you note here, you can easily scroll to metrics here. If you don't know quite what metric you're looking for, we've got the success metrics organized here. And then we've got the access metrics organized. And then finally, the support metrics organized there. So you can toggle between metrics as well as you can toggle between locales. Okay, so you could go back to the report here, but I think we're going to go into, fine, let's go back to the report. And I'll take you back to what we were just looking at on our overall progress view. But let's say now we want to think about the Vision 2030 in terms of equity. And what the Chancellor's Office has decided, if you want to click on that equity button now, Adriel, is that to look at equity, we could just disegg those metrics that are for all students. But by having a cohort view of the data, that's a way to say, okay, students who started in the same year, let's look and see how those different student groups are progressing towards these metrics. So we're going to take a subset of students, which are first-time credit students, and look at them in terms of equity. So first you have to select a metric. And let's select that earn an award vision goal completion definition. And then this is just like the separate part. Whenever you're talking about equity, we want you to intentionally make a selection based on a student group that you're interested in exploring. So we're asking you here, select a student population. Why don't we select first generation to start with? And then just notice there's a disaggregate by gender. We have overall and we have gender. So this is where we're getting to the next level disaggregation. So if we wanted to see like female first generation versus male first generation students, we can do that here with the cohort data. That's the only data we have this disaggregation built for. It really explodes the amount of data available, and it's necessary for SEP. We'll show you that in just a second, but we're going to stick there at the overall level. And let's just stick with statewide. We don't need to change locale. And then if you want to hit view report. So quickly you see that for this metric, and it's telling you right there in the title, it's a 3-year time frame. This is how first generation are comparing to not first generation to unknown reported. And now you're going to notice over in that left-hand navigation, we've got something that's a cohort length. So right now, if you want to click on that, Adriel, you can see we have a 2, 3, 4, 6 years available. The default's going to be 3 years. And if you hover over, Adriel's showing you, what does that mean? That means that students that started in 2019-20, we have a full 3 years available of data, right? So students that started in spring 2022, we have the fall 2023 data now. I'm sorry, the spring, we've got, fall 22 data, say, okay, they've had the full 3 years to complete. And so that gives you complete count, allowing these students a full 3 years. If we go to the 4-year view, and Adriel, if you hover over again, you can see now that's a 2018-19 cohort. They started in 2018-19. They've been allowed 4 years to complete. And if you notice that gap between the first generation and not first generation went down slightly with 6%. Now it's 5%, right? So we've given more time for students to complete. You see that gap narrowing a bit. And then Adriel, do you want to do 6 years? And you can see that gap narrowing a little further so that now that there's only 4% between first generation, not first generation. Possibly there's a data story here. Like once again, and we try to always say this is directional signage for people to kind of understand, give you indicators of where you might want to explore further, have further conversations at your college, in your region, talk to your students, et cetera, explore a bit further. But, it's not, what it seems like here is allowing first generation students longer to complete. You're seeing that gap narrow a bit. And then why don't we go into that student population drill down and look at that secondary drill down? Perfect. So down there at the bottom, Adriel's going to click on gender. To now we can see how this looks comparing male, female. All of the values combines non-binary, multiple values reported, and unknown, unreported for gender. And that's partially because the non-binary is a new data value. And if we started to disegg too much, you'd see a lot of the data disappear because it would be suppressed for FERPA reasons. So we combine them together. And so you can see then that the differences comparing female to male, all other values to show those differences for gender. And if you want to scroll up to the very top, we'll just make a quick note about this. And again, that you can PDF, you can go back to overall, you can go to a trend. We're not going to do that right now, but there's again a trend display, just like we saw in overall progress. You can go back to that landing page if you like. And that pretty much covers the what is that Vision 2030 report that I understand is there's a lot to it because you've got those two ways of viewing the data, the overall progress and the equity progress. And with that, we'll pause to see if there's any questions to answer. Okay, then let's continue, Adriel, with a view of another report that's a little bit more straightforward.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Karen. So I'm going to return back to that Data Views tab, click on Reports and Insights, and I'm actually going to enter the California Adult Education Program Scorecard. Now, the reason we're selecting this is because there was an intentional design with the California Adult Education Program Scorecard, the Strong Workforce Program Report, and the Guided Pathways Report to contain some consistency across how you're going to view and visualize the reports and metrics that are for each program. So you'll note that as you go into those 3 reports that I just mentioned, they'll have a similar feel, a similar look. The sidebar will have some different options just depending on the report that you select. And then similarly, as we said, the toolkit will be dynamic. So you'll see some shifting in the guidance. You'll see some shifting in the terminology. I do want to hit a little bit more on this toolkit just a bit. So let's say we have this participants metric and we just want to get a little bit more of an understanding of this 202A participants, right? We click on the terminology. We have an overlay that pops up on this site directly, right? So keeping you in the same range of where you're viewing all of your data, right? You're not being taken to some other area. Now, if you want a bit more context, you're going to hit this hyperlink below. And this will take you to another tab that's still located in Data Vista in our resource library. You're able to download this resource and just give you a bit more information on this reportable individual, similar to how we've seen in previous metric definition dictionaries. So that's a great functionality that you'll see across all the reports and even across some of these other views. Now, for this report scorecard, again, it looks a little bit more like a report, right? Now, we do want to highlight some notes at the bottom. So the most recent year of data contains incomplete metrics due to not enough time. So there's a couple of metrics that we have to allow for students to exit or just give an additional year. So that would be median annual earnings and median change in annual earnings. So in order to see these metrics on our CAPE scorecard, we'd actually have to go back 1 year. Once we go back a year, we'll have all the CAPE report metrics that are required for 3-year planning and that are to report it to the CA legislature. So this would be a great way to maybe just quickly do a quick PDF. And if you want to go into statewide or locale, which I'll go into just a little bit on these drill downs, you'll have that option.
Hey, Adriel, do you want to pause and just say why those, I'm not sure I heard why those metrics might be not showing?
Yeah, I just mentioned like
Okay.
it is metrics that we want to give students a little bit more time where we have to wait a year, so they might have to wait a year to exit college. They're typically having to be done with the employment and earning metrics. Difference from the Vision 2030 report that we see on this CAPE scorecard is that you'll see this YOY, right? Now, the Vision 2030 had a lot of measurements in terms of a baseline goal. Now, this report will have a year-over-year measurement for metrics. So that's why you're seeing this 2% YOY, right? There won't be a baseline measurement. This will be year-over-year. I'm going to go ahead and manipulate the data just a bit. So I'm going to stay at statewide, but what I do want to really highlight is that, as we were saying, this left-hand sidebar does become dynamic. So in this CAPE report, we are going to see some different locale types. You're going to note consortia, which is specific to this program itself. We have community college district, college, and institution. We also do have the 6 AE program drill downs. So those are also listed right here. I'm going to, for this purpose, click on CTE. And what you'll see is you'll see your selection reflected both in terms of the numbers changing, and you'll also get a nice little dynamic change on the title. So that way you know that your selection has been reflected. And then lastly, we have different types of drill downs. Now, I do want to note that there's this subtext that does say select one group of students. For this portion of the scorecard, we can only select one group of students. I will go into just a bit of where you can select multiple, but do note for this selection, one group of students is only allowed. So let's go gender male, and we can have this reflected. Now, let's say we want to dive a little bit more and get a time trend of over the years, right? Have an understanding of what that looks like as a year-over-year progress. I'm going to click on this little emblem, this up arrow. And this is where we'll be able to view our time trend. So you'll have, again, some additional options that I want to point out right here. And I'm not going to go into them too much because we'll have some time in the single metric to see the full scope of these. But there's some options that you have to adjust the x-axis for time and show a table underneath. At this portion, what I do want to show is if you want to be able to maybe look at multiple student groups, right? So let's say we want to do all genders. I can click on this left blue rectangle. And this will give me multiple student groups displayed on one graph. Now, if I want to maybe just look at a couple of these, right? Let's just say female, male, and non-binary. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold Control on my keyboard. For those that are using Mac, this will be Command, and for those using a Windows, this will be Control. And I'm going to click on each selection that I want. So I want female, male, and non-binary. And in this case, you'll see the data reflected on the selections that were made. You can also do a little bit of a highlight at this portion. So if I want to just look at female on this report, I can just go ahead and click on female on this little emblem, and that will be reflected. And there was a great intentional effort in the past to just provide a lot of context for some of these CAPE reports and metrics. So we did want to make sure we create similar functionality. So if you hover over the notes that contain some information about what is displayed for this group of students, you'll have some additional context just to help build you in understanding the visualizations and metrics that you're working with. So I'm going to go ahead and return now back to the CAPE report. Karen, do we want to go ahead and now move into the metric themes, or do we want to do a little bit of a specific highlight of a group of students with this report?
Yeah, why don't we go into a program? Yeah, correct activities mail. Okay. What else do we do? Oh, you did the trend with the drill down. Sorry, I was multitasking by answering a question in Q&A. So yeah, I think we're good, right? I think you've covered everything that the trend.
So let's hop on over to metric themes now. I think this will be a nice, and this is going to be a little bit of a reorientation. So there are, for a lot of these reports, specific metrics based on the program and initiative. Metric themes and single metric are going to give you a little bit more functionality and control over your visualizations, which was mentioned earlier, but you're also going to be able to pull some of these same metrics in these views. So even though these exist in the report view, you can pull some of these metrics and do some even expanded manipulation in the single metric and metric theme. So let's go ahead and demonstrate that right now.
Yeah, so just to like reemphasize what I think Eric said very clearly, the same data is available in those three views. But it's really, and it's kind of behind the scenes of report and insights, although you saw in Vision 2030, there's two groups of students in that report. And this is where you start with metric themes in the single metric view. You're going to be taken to this kind of page where you have to really make the decision, what students, why am I here? What students do I want to view data for? And for the first release, there's three groups of students. We've got all of our students, non-special admit, and it's not duly enrolled in K-12, our CAPE adult learners, right? That would be included in that CAPE scorecard report that combine the CASAS data with the COMAS data as well, to create that full picture of adult ed in California. And then we've got our cohort view we talked about that are first-time credit, non-special admit or not duly enrolled in K-12 students. And then we are planning on adding a new cohort view for first-time special admit students who are duly enrolled in K-12. And just notice that toolkit again is going to give you some updates. There's the metric definition dictionaries here for the three students. The terminology is going to have the definitions of students for CAPE adult learners. It's really important to understand reportable individuals as well, participants. And then of course, you've got our first time non-special admit students, and then our non-special admit students. And this is going to be something that may have people have to get used to, but for strong workforce program, that's just a subset of the non-special admit students now. It's basically a CTE view. We're going to see that in just a moment, what I'm talking about. That's why with the SWP definition there as well. So why don't we go into non-special admits, and we're just going to take a quick peek at these. And this will feel the most familiar in terms of the launch board, the way the launch board organized the data. You'll see those tiles, and depending on the student group that was selected, these tiles would change a bit. And so you can see here, let's say, for example, we have this landing page because we want to make sure that it's clear where, if you're looking for a particular metric, where you might find it. And so like, let's say you're looking for course success, you think it might be in progress. So if Adriel clicks on that little drop down and clicks on progress, we get kind of a preview of what metrics are in each segment. And then we can kind of scan and see, oh, here's course success rate. I do indeed want to go into the progress segment. So Adriel's going to click into progress. And I'm going to make a note. And this is a lot of data when you select all students. So it does take a little bit longer to load, but just make a note that you can toggle between the different segments here. If we decided, oh no, really, I want to go to success, Adriel, you can go over there and show them. Then that will update with those success metrics. As you can see, we've had to put them on a couple pages because we get the long scroll, just like happened in Launchboard. And so, yeah, as Adriel's scrolling down, you can see there's quite a number of metrics, but at least here now you have, these are the metrics, success metrics. There's 2 pages, right? For all students or students who are not enrolled in K-12, not duly enrolled. And we can just stay here and let's just explore that left-hand bar. Well, let's do that more in the single metric view. This is going to look very similar to the single metric view. We're not going to do too much here. Let's just show that options tab here. If you want to click on that. This is where we're giving you some, we're not going to show anything, but you can show a table. We're not going to do anything right here. We'll show you in the single metric view, but just know that that's up there. When you see options, please click on it. It'll allow you to see what's available. Again, for the report view and for this view, we're sort of limiting options. This is the idea that, different users come here. There's different reasons why you come here. All the bells and whistles in terms of the functionality are available in that single metric view. And that's where we're going to go next, unless I forgot to say anything, Adriel, but I think you're not okay. You're saying no. Thank you. Okay. So let's go to single metric. That's our third and last data view. And this is looking very familiar, this landing page. Again, you're selecting the student group. Depending on the student group that you select will change that left-hand navigation as well as the metrics available, the drill downs available, the guidance that's available, right? Everything in the toolkit that's available. So once again, we're asking you to make a real conscious decision Now, a lot of you that just work in CAPE, right? You're just adult ed, you would, always be going to a CAPE adult learner. So it might seem like a little bit of an extra step, but for others who go across a lot of programs, I know a lot of people, you're across Strong Workforce Program, you're across adult learner, adult ed as well. Just making sure that you understand this is one platform to view very similar metrics, sometimes different depending on the student group, right? But you have to just make sure you're clear about which students you're here to view data for. So why don't we stick with that non-special admit students, and we'll start to look at that left-hand navigation, again, for this student group. And so right here at the top where you see student type, let's say you accidentally clicked one of the student groups, you can easily go toggle over to look at CAPE adult learners here, and we'll take you straight to the metrics in that are available for that student view. Locale is going to be the same as we've seen across the reports. That's going to feel very, very much similar. Why don't we look at the journey? So in the student success metric dashboard, that was a snapshot view, we had these journeys that were based on goals or non-credit course taking patterns. Students can be placed in more than one journey. A student might say, hey, I'm a degree transfer student, but they're exhibiting non-credit course taking that's also putting them in a short-term career, or maybe one of those adult education or ESL students. So just be aware, you can't add up the journeys to equal all students at whatever locale you're at. And so that's just a way to explore the data. I did see a question quickly in the Q&A about what if I only want to look at my degree transfer students? Yes, but just be clear that degree transfer is based on their goal, right? That's from CCC Apply and then comes into the system. And I've understood from some colleges and gets updated once they've come into your college to what their actual goal might be at the college once they are enrolled at your college. And then why don't we look at program? This is really important. I want to make sure people understand this. By adding this drill down, this should appear very similar to what was the community college pipeline. So you had the SSM dashboard. There was no drill down by program. You had to go over to community college pipeline and do an explore by program there. We brought it all together to be really clear. The student success metrics were always there in community college pipeline, but this way, bringing it all together into one view, now it's really clear. You can view this different data. Like if you want to see strong workforce program, you just click on CTE. And then right away, when I go ahead, you can go ahead and click Adriel on CTE. This is going to give you the same data that you have for your strong workforce program. And let's say that you want to explore by a sector. A sector is they've mapped top 6 codes that are flagged vocationally to a sector. So let's say you want to explore a sector. Or let's just say you don't quite sure what you want. You can start typing in that program search. Why don't we, let's do business, because I know we have a lot of offerings in business. And you can see there's a sector for business. You can see the top 4 that have business in the title, as well as the top 6. For you to decide, based on if you just selected maybe your college, your district, your region, what you want to explore. Adriel just clicked on the sector. You can see that's going to update then and clearly show you have all non-special admin students, so no journey selected, in the business and entrepreneur sector at statewide. And then let's continue down to that metric drill down. Let's say we wanted to define that, that this is going to be a long scroll of metrics. So we have this way to search. And so Adriel's going to start typing in earned, and we'll see what metrics have that in the title. We got our earned 9+ career education units, and we got our other earned and award metrics. And you can scroll down and see what metrics have are there for completion or the 9+ units. There's our vision goal completion definition metric that we saw in the Vision 2030 report. If you hover over 2023, we'll get familiar. There's about 144,000 students, right? Oh, we're at the business entrepreneurship sector, so that's less. So that's just a way that you can start exploring metrics, but again, it's one at a time, because we're allowing you a lot more functionality, and can get quite overwhelming to really focus. And here's where that drill down is going to look very similar to what Adriel showed in the CAPE report, where you can select either that left hand, like if you select age, you'd see all the subgroups for age, or you can do that control or command to select multiple groups. And just know there's a lot of disaggregations available for this group of students. Adriel was showing that earlier where he was scrolling down the list, and you can see we have a lot of ways to view We have students who attempted credit ESL. We have our disability, of course, ethnicity, first generation. These are all the DISEGs that were available before. Foster youth, yeah, gender, homeless. And so why don't we go back to, why don't we just go back and click on why don't we click on first generation again? We'll stick with that DISEG. Thanks, Adriel. Or you can click on the whole whole group if you want. Great. And let's now look at what's available in that top navigation menu. Now you always will see PDF. Let's note here that CSV is available, so let's click on that. And this will have to be by year, so it's not a bulk export. But the reason we have to do year by year is you'd be waiting a long time to be able to, it gives you all metrics, or we hope it does. I think someone might have put it out a bug, but it gives you all metrics for the locale and program or top code that you've selected, or if you want to stay with all programs, that's just all programs, but it gives you all metrics, all DISEGs for the year selected. Understanding that you wouldn't have some of the employment metrics if you select the most recent year, right? Because we have to wait to make sure students have exited before we want to show their employment and earnings. So there's where you can print a CSV. And let's go back. And let's show a little bit of more of the functionality under options. I don't know, Adriel, did you show the years displayed, the way you can navigate that? Okay, let's say you had an initiative or something that targeted this sector for your students, and maybe it started in 2017. You could adjust that x-axis to only show those years. And we hear this really clearly in our user focus groups that people imagine they want control over the way the data is visualized. So that's one way. And then you can show or hide all labels. Sometimes it's kind of busy when you've got several student groups, and it's just like when you're in Excel and you try to do something that's going to hide some of the labels, right? If it's going to be overlaid. So there's that availability, but say you want it really clean, just want to hide. And then for metrics that are percents, you can adjust the y-axis. Actually, the default now is an auto adjust, not 100% like we had in Launchboard. But if you want to go back to the 100%, you select 100% for those metrics that are displayed by percentage, and you'd have that y-axis then go from 0 to 100%. We can show the table. We showed that earlier, I think. Didn't we? Or maybe not. So this was actually available in the community college pipeline and the adult education pipeline. And can you scroll over a little bit? Yeah. So I really like the table because I can just quickly see what is my student, that's the denom is my student population. Out of how many first generation students, let's just start with 16, 17, out of my 72,500 plus first generation students, 5,000, over 5,000 in the business sector, right? Completed this metric, attained the vision goal definition, that's 7%. If I want to compare to my not first generation, that's 98,000. So that's my denominator, my universe sort of students I looked at. 6,383 completed or attained the metric outcome. That's a little bit lower at 6%. So it's just a really nice way. We understood from our user focus groups, people are different in how they like to visualize and think about the data. If you like a table, then this might be for you. And then if you scroll back up, the one last thing we have in options is you can show a bar graph. And I don't think we need to show that. It just turns that line graph into a bar graph. And with that, we have a couple more minutes before we're to go over to see if there's any Q&A to answer live and to finish out. Adriel, why don't you show us the top 5 function up there? And if you notice really quickly that the compare and top 5 are only available in the single metric view. They're new, they just popped up. And so just make sure that you know to go here if you want to do this kind of functionality.
Yeah, I think a unique way to really build in that customization within the single metric is just noting that if you want to do these compare and top 5, like Karen said, you want to make sure you're in this view, right? But you do get a lot of options to go ahead and view your top 5 just based on locale. Right now we're looking at statewide. This is for our all non-special admit students. So do note that the selections that you made before, you are going to have to go ahead and make the selections once again. So those didn't get carried over into this top 5. So I'm going to stay at the statewide, but I do want to note that there is macro as well and micro and district. So you're going to, at times, whenever you need to select something or throughout some of these views, you're going to get these nulls, right? And that might be frightening. Oh, I don't know what to do. What happened to all my data? There was a very intentional effort by our developers just to make sure that there's signage as well. So there's a little disclaimer underneath. If you're seeing a null or you're not seeing your data, is pick an earlier academic year or just make sure a locale is selected. So I'm going to go ahead and select my macro locale. You're going to see that reflected. You're going to see that there is the total number of students that are provided. In some cases, let me go ahead and choose a metric or a journey. So I'm going to go ahead and do all non-special ed students. Again, this is all students. I like, as I'm doing this, to go ahead and collapse this side nav because it does get really lengthy. So as you're utilizing this, I would go ahead and collapse these, and that would be my recommendation to you. I'm going to do the sector of business and entrepreneurship. Let me look at the metric of just earn 9+ career education units. So you're going to see that everything switched to a percent in this case, but if you still want to see the counts and the total, you just hover over and they're also there displayed. So again, just multiple ways to kind of view the data, and just note that there is some signage that's across to kind of help you digest in what you're seeing.
So Angel, these are the top 5 in the Bay region. And then if I wanted to go look at the top 5 in statewide, I go back to locale, right?
Back to locale.
And it's a little bit like, and just go to statewide. And now I've got, okay. And just make sure, great. So you have to select it. Telling you that, but I know it's like an additional step. And just make sure that you see now, like, because these are, it's a percentage, as Adriel showed, they're ranked by percentage, right? But then hovering over tells you how many students, right, are being included. And then you can also do that by microregion to see the top 5 in the microregion. Just try to make that, really clear.
Yeah, and we can drill down even further, right, Karen? We can even look at a specific, let's say we want to look at female students.
Yeah, let's say we thought, like, who's serving female students statewide in terms of this metric, earning 9+ career education students, right? You can only look at one student population at a time. Now you can look to see, okay, across the state, these are the top colleges in terms of the percentage, right, of students. 47% looks at the higher that are getting that earning 9+ CTE units in the district in the year, which is an important sort of milestone for engagement, based on like research that's been done. So I think that's just a really powerful way to think about how to explore some ways to kind of compare yourself, or look at some of the top colleges in the state or region, microregion or macroregion. And do you want to show the compare really fast?
We're running a little bit out of time, and we want to make sure we get to all questions, but let's just provide, again, the last functionality that's specifically found in this single metric. This will be your comparison view. So we're not going to fully go through it, but for those of you that are on your own and just curious about doing the comparison, there is a nice little overlay that can help guide you and walk you. And we're happy to also support and being able to utilize this function, because it's a great one that we want to make sure all users feel comfortable doing. So we went ahead and built this, but if you all have continuous questions about it, please feel free to reach out. And with that, Karen, I think we've hit everything. So I am going to go ahead and stop my share and return it back to our presenters for the remaining portion of the Q&A.
And I'll actually maybe jump in because we did have one Q&A that is worth, I think, addressing right off the top. And so some folks were asking about methodology. And if you do want to know more about the methodology for those, the MDD metric definition dictionary is available on the website under resources. So you can see that right away. You'll be able to see, how is a denominator being calculated? How is a numerator being calculated? If it's related to an MIS metric, that is telling you exactly what are the codes from MIS that were applied to that. If it's coming from some of the other data sources like EDD wage file, it may not have quite as much specificity, but wherever possible, we're giving quite a bit of information about how that metric was calculated based on what was submitted.
Thanks, Eric. I'll just hit a couple of meta questions that I get a lot. One, is this going to replace Datamart? And the answer is no. Datamart continues to provide a variety of meaningful information to the field, and importantly, does so right away after submission. So one of the key things that Data Mart provides for is the ability for colleges to see what's submitted and how it gets represented in a variety of ways. As always, these tools tend to have different purposes. A second thing that that comes up a lot is what's the relationship between this and Cradle to Career? And that comes up with a lot of things. So people have to recognize that Cradle to Career is not going to be the one dashboard to rule them all for the state of California. It is built with a very specific set of purposes in mind, which is to examine students' journey across segments in education and to bring in other data where possible. They are not going to do things like satisfy needs that each of the individual segments have for representation of data outcomes, things like that. Some of that will be there. And the part of the Cradle to Career data system that includes the California Community College data, that comes from MIS, just like Data Vista does. But they are going to be building it from a snapshot in the way that we have historically built these types of dashboards. So I would say they are aimed at different purposes. The third set of questions we get a lot is how is this related to the vision aligned reporting? So vision aligned reporting is designed to tackle a different mechanism, which is helping to streamline our reporting around individual programs. Data from Data Vista, the Data Vista platform around the Vision 2030 goals will be pulled in to the Vision Aligned reporting platform. As part of that, there will also be other reporting elements that will be going in through MIS during the normal MIS submission process. You'll be hearing more about that soon through the normal update to the MIS submission process. But those remain three distinct entities. The third question I see a lot of is that Data Vista is not replacing the full CalPAS Plus platform. And so I think we just got another one. The K-12 SWP dashboard, as well as the submission of data for that dashboard, continue to live on that platform. The mechanism for submitting data there remains the same. The CalPADS data can continue to be submitted to the CalPAS Plus platform. And if you have questions about that, you can send your emails to calpass@ccco.edu. One of the things that you've seen, one of the core members of the team, Ravinder Singh, posting in chat quite frequently is the feedback survey. We really appreciate all the feedback that you guys have provided over the years. And one of the things I think hopefully at least a few of you have seen is that we have worked to build in a lot of your feedback into the evolution of this tool. It's something that the team really takes seriously. Obviously, we cannot make this a one tool to rule them all. We would love to be able to do that, but there are many different needs, and we have to make some choices. And I think one of the things that we always have to be cognizant of is not veering too far into the places that some of our cars are headed, where when you want to look at a dashboard and understand what's happening in your car, you now may have a visual display that's doing a couple of thousand different things, and being able to navigate that while trying to get a sense of where you are, how fast you're going, and whether or not your car is operating can be very challenging. So we are still trying to stay to the overall goal of designing a dashboard that helps folks understand where they are and how their students are doing, while trying to increase the functionality without dramatically increasing the complexity. Anything else, team, that you want to surface from the Q&A? I notice we don't have any other open questions remaining. All right, so we'll go ahead and you have a last couple of minutes as I do the last slide here. If you have a burning question. So you may have noticed the Data Vista listserv signup is actually maxed out right now. The service provider has had some challenges with some cyber attacks So they've essentially throttled the ability to sign up. So if you've had a challenge signing up and have tried, you can either try the link again later, or you can send us your contact information to the Data Vista at cccco.edu. And you can also use the Data Vista contact page on the platform. So that, I think, oh, and I'll just say it again. So Ravinder has been encouraging you to complete the feedback form on the webinar. Please do so. For those of you who have questions, want things to change over time, this is the opportunity to make sure that we're attending to those things. I always encourage you also to reach out to, your various leadership in your area. They bring those things to us as well. But this is going to iterate over time. This is our first re-release of the platform. We're super excited by it. I couldn't be more excited. As we've gotten close to this, it's been a combination of nervous excitement and super high energy excitement. I'm really glad that all of you are there. All of you are here to share this kind of moment with us. I think we're going to see a lot higher utility out of this platform than what we've been able to deliver in the past. And we're going to continue to build it better based on your feedback. I think that brings us to the wrap up for today. I haven't seen any additional questions come through. Let me just close with this. I was having a recent conversation with a friend of mine about an old John Mulaney comedy bit about canceling plans. We were talking about a plan that we had and canceling and how good that felt. And it reminded me of a different bit, a different part of that bit in which, doing things is hard. Attending things is hard, change is hard, learning is hard. So I wanted to make sure to thank you all for coming to today's webinar and embarking on this journey forward with us together. I really appreciate you coming to a thing, especially a thing about data, because, well, you didn't have to. And it's really, really easy not to go to things. It's so much easier not to go to things than to go to them, that often we would attend anything else. The fact that we go to anything is, in some ways quite remarkable. I think the way Mulaney put it is percentage-wise, it's 100% easier not to do things than it is to do them. So I really appreciate that all of you have spent your Halloween afternoon with us to see this new tool. We are going to continue to be rolling out information and support and resources in support of this tool. But just again, thank you all for joining us today. And I hope you all have a wonderful and safe Halloween, and find the full-size bar candy of your choice. Or if you're one of those folks that happen to be in one of those neighborhoods, that your kids have the opportunity to ask for and receive a potato, which is one of my favorite new memes going around for people giving kids choices at Halloween. I'm not sure I would have chosen that as a kid, but I definitely would as a grown-up. So I hope you guys all have a fantastic rest of the day and an excellent rest of the year. Thanks, everybody.
Who's to say what's impossible will they forgot? This world keeps spinning, and with each new day I can feel a change in everything. And as the surface breaks, reflections fade, but in some ways they remain the same. And as my mind begins to spread its wings, there's no stopping curiosity. I wanna turn the whole thing upside down. I'll find the things they say just can't be found. I'll share this love I find with everyone. We'll sing and dance to Mother Nature's songs. I don't want this feeling to go away. Who's to say I can't do everything, well, I can try. And as I roll along, I begin to find things aren't always just what they seem. I wanna turn the whole thing upside down. I'll find the things they say just can't be found. I'll share this love I find with everyone. We'll sing and dance to Mother Nature's song. This world keeps spinning and there's no.
I appreciate that. There's about 40 people still hanging out to see whether or not there's anything left. There is not. So great to enter. Gareth Bueller, you're still here? Or go home. Thanks, everybody.
I don't want this feeling to go away. Please don't go away.